Hello, Steve White, say no. I'm having a little bit of an Agatha Christie marathon at the moment. We had a bit of a heat wave here in Australia, sort of spring, sort of sprung, but the last day or so it's been rainy and cold, and it just felt like murder mystery weather. And I thought, well, what do I have? And I'm like, well, you've never watched the classics. I hadn't watched Murder on the Orient Express. I hadn't watched Death on the Nile. There was just a bunch of Agatha Christie things that I had that I thought, I'm just going to watch all of them. So I watched Murder on the Orient Express, the 1978 version. I watched the 1974 version of Death on the Nile. I watched The Mirror Cracked with Angela Lansbury and Kim Novak and, of course, Elizabeth Taylor. And I also watched the new version of Murder on the Orient Express. And I have to say, I was very disappointed by that, and I actually fell asleep about 5 times and struggled over the course of about 3 hours to stay awake to watch it. Because it was basically the same story as the original one. I had heard they'd done a new story because they didn't want to just remake the same story, because obviously people have already seen it. But they just remade the story, and they just made one little change at the end where it really was just dragging something out a little bit. It didn't really change anything. The end was still the same. They just made you think for a second that the ending was going to go differently, then it didn't. So that was it. That was their big change to make it a new film. And I'm like, wow, I was so disappointed. Now, Death on the Nile was great. It had so many people in it. It had Bette Davis, Angela Lansbury, Maggie Smith all in the same film. I mean, it was just too much fabulous. I just couldn't handle it. And just the subtle, bitchy dialogue was all very clever. The cinematography was very standard 70s movie, but they actually went on location. They filmed, in Egypt, and it looks amazing. The shots of the ship on the Nile, they actually just took their time watching the ship just, drift off and fade into a second shot of it in the sunlight, sundown and stuff. It was really wonderful. There were surprises. There were moments where I was like, oh my God, it actually got me. It's like 50 years old. This film was 40, I don't know, 74, when's that? I'm not going to do the math. But it held up really well. Then I watched Murder on the Orient Express. Now, unfortunately, the guy they had playing, I'm just going to call him Parrot, because I've always called him Parrot, Hercules Parrot. I know his name is Herculio Perot or something. I can't say his name. He's not French, though. As he reminds everyone, he's from Belgium. And I'm like, okay, I thought he was a frog. They keep calling him a frog. I know you're not supposed to say that, but that's what they keep calling him. And he's like, yes, keep correcting them. They had a different actor that I'd seen in other things, and I'm like, no, my Parrot has this little black mustache and his black hair, and this guy was grey, and just, I think he was in the Harry Potter films. He was the father later on, I think. He looks like him either way. So that film, again, had some shocking moments. And the end, I'm not going to give away. I'm not going to give spoilers away, because it's a funny thing. People say it's 40 years old. Yeah, exactly. So it's like new to people who weren't around then, who just sort of finding these sort of films. So I'm not going to spoil anything. But the ending was surprising. I didn't really see it coming, and I was surprised at how they negated it and how they managed it. And it was quite an interesting ending, and how people talk about that film and don't give away, but because it's so complicated, I understand how it's not easy to give away the ending. I was expecting, though, for the train to be moving the whole time. I thought there was going to be an element of trapped on a train and not being able to get off because it's moving, and there was an element of that I was surprised by, and they played that a little differently in the newer film. And the newer film, like I said, Johnny Depp was good, Michelle Pfeiffer was good, all the actors were good, they had some diversity without any, wokeness or anything, so it was really done well. But I had heard there was a different ending, and I assumed it was a different killer, a different murderer, a different victim and everything, and it's really not. They just gave one little half twist that twisted back to the original ending, and that was it. So I was a bit disappointed by that. Now, The Mirror Cracked, that was ruined for me as well. I had gone all these years and not had the ending ruined for me, and then I looked at Wikipedia just to see box office how it had done and production wise as we're getting towards the end of the film, and they had some little blurb about, just a little comment about how the original inspiration for the film was this event that happened to this person, and I'm like, that just gave away the ending. I know now what happened. So about 20 minutes before the ending, it was ruined. After all these years of not having the ending ruined so I could watch this film. But I'd sort of, and I hadn't really worked it out, but then I'm like, oh, okay, because I thought about this, but I hadn't put two and two together, and I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But that was great because, again, the bitchy dialogue, Angela Lansbury playing Miss Marple so well, Elizabeth Taylor being just amazing, being Liz. And I didn't, I found it really surprising, and I'm not going to spoil that one either, but yes, if you haven't watched Agatha Christie, they're timeless. They're flawless, they're timeless, they're perfect. And you only get to watch them once because apparently they don't do different versions of them. They just redo the same ones over and over again. So I'm going to get back to it. I've got 10 Little Indians to watch, and I'm going to go.